This is the point that we've reached with the model so far. I've printed off the roof of the tower, including the stairs and the ladder, and then the top of the tower. I took the lessons that we learned from Seamus's Lighthouse and I've applied them to this model. So we're going to seal in the acrylic pipe right there and right there with the UV resin so that the water hopefully won't get in. And then we're going to make the whole top of the tower so that it screws to the rest of the tower like this. I'm going to use a little bit of PTFE tape on the treads, and that basically seals the treads. It's the same type of tape that a plumber would use if they're installing a tap in your house. So we can compare our model as it is to the real thing. That's where we are at the moment. We'll align it up properly. You can see here, I'm not certain if that'll come out in the video. Let me get a little bit of light. I'm not sure if it'll come out in the video, but there's a little access ladder right here. This access ladder right here. And you can see when they would have had the access ladder originally, they would have had no guardrails around it whatsoever. That ladder and the stairs up the top, which you access the antenna and the pieces that you need to get to up at the top of the tower, that's at 54 meters or 177 feet. I don't know about you, but I would be absolutely terrified of going up there. Even in the real thing with the guardrails now, I don't know, hats go off to him. I'd be terrified. Fair play to him. But the book that I'm referencing here, great book. That's Tory Island. That's the island that I used to visit in my childhood. But the book that I'm referencing is The Great Lighthouses of Ireland by David Hare. Very good book. Highly recommend it. Really good reference material. If you wanted to build this model or a model similar to it yourself, it's got the blueprints of Fastnet and everything in it. Everything you need to reference and build a model yourself. But we can have a look. This is where we stand in comparison to the full modern model. So you can see we've just built the top of the tower to this point right here. And that's where it'll screw together with the rest of the tower. Then we can look at the next kind of steps we need to take. I'm not looking forward to making the glazing cage because in the last couple of models I've made, the glazing cage has been one of the most awkward parts to do in the whole model. I'm hoping to use this ring here to kind of stabilize the astragals to keep them as a circle when we glue them to the model. Hopefully, that's the plan. We'll see if it works. Hopefully it does. I've also taken some of the lessons that we learned from Seamus's Lighthouse and made the handrails so that they're detachable, so that they are interchangeable. They sit on with a friction fit. Because if you look at pictures of Fastnet, whether it be this one or even this one, the handrails are white. But I'll put up a piece of footage which will show you that I believe it as it stands right now. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe as it stands right now, Fastnet, the handrails are red. So it'll be very handy in the future if we can put on the white handrails. I'm worried that the white handrails will just blend into the top of the model and you won't be able to see them. But we will be able to put on the white handrails, see what they look like. If they don't suit the model, we could take them off, put on the red handrails, like in the last model that we built at Fastnet. It's a really great feature and I'm really happy about it. Next steps, I'm building the interface, which mounts the beacon onto the model. So that's printing at the moment. I'll try it on, see if it fits properly, and then if it does, we can solder around a little piece of Vero board with the connectors on it, and then we can put the beacon up through the model and see if the whole lot fits together. So yeah, wish me luck. Let's try it out, see if it works. Let's do it. The first thing we need to check is that the interface actually fits into the aperture for it. So let's see. They're the little ears that guide it, that tell me, front and back. So we can put this in here like this and we can see that's absolutely lovely. Okay, that's good. Good, good, good. So now I need to do a couple of very small jobs. I need to take off the support first. Okay, so I need to do a couple of small jobs. I need to put the threaded inserts in here and here. And that's where the board is going to sit that has the connectors for the motor and the LED. So I'll put in the threaded inserts here, and here, and here. And then we can mount it on and put a little bit of tape on it. And then we can make sure that when the beacon gets mounted to it, that it actually fits in the model and that everything is correct. So this is testing as much as anything else. So without further ado, let's get these threaded inserts in. Right, let's get these top threaded inserts in first, because these are the ones that the beacon is going to mount to, and these are the ones that are actually going to show us if everything's going to fit in the model correctly. And then we can put in the 2mm threaded inserts for the prototyping board. Right, there's one. Right, there we go. Done and dusted. Let's just give these a second now to cool. And then we can try the beacon. All right, let's try attaching the beacon to the coupling. And then we can put a little bit of tape, use a little bit of tape to attach this to the threaded ring. And then we can test to see if everything fits into the lamp room properly. Hopefully it will, but let me get to attaching the beacon to the coupling. I've been trying to think of different ways to attach this because I really like it. But it would be nice if this was quicker and easier, because obviously it's awkward enough to use this, to put this little Allen screw in. I think what's really nice about these models now is that this is the exact same beacon as we built for Seamus's cottage. I'm going to build one of the low powered beacons for this model because, as we saw with Seamus's cottage, this particular beacon, this one right here, will be really cool for filming. It'll be really cool for filming, but it's way too powerful for the it's way too powerful for the model. It would distract the neighbors, and I don't know, it's too powerful. So we will try this beacon in the model for sure. It does look very cool in filming, but I will make a weaker beacon for this model, so you'll be able to see the process of building the beacon and how the whole lot goes together. But for now anyway, it's important to get this one mounted, because up until now it's all theory. In theory everything fits into the model, and according to the CAD drawing everything's good, everything's cool. But sometimes you don't really know until you know. You know, it could be a problem with that resistor, could be a problem where it's pinching wires or something like that. And this is the time to find it out, because if there is something wrong, it's not a big deal to change it and fix it now. Whereas if we waited too long and the model was too far down the road, then we'd have a big issue, right? That's stitching time saying, right? Let's get a little bit of masking tape. Just normal everyday masking tape, nothing fancy about it. And we'll stick the mount to the little threaded ring, and then we can see if it fits in the model. And if it does, we can proceed. If it doesn't, that's okay too. We can just do a little redesign. I'm not overly pushed about it. Lovely. Okay, now that we've got a little bit of tape on that, we can try it in the lamp room and see if everything fits properly. I hope it does. If it does, we can proceed and we're good. Ooh. Yes. Okay, that fits nicely. I'm not too bothered about the gap up here and the gap down here because I'm going to put a couple of rings, one there and one there, to keep the glazing cage round. So that's fine. But at the moment, that's fitting in there nicely. I'm happy with that. I've just tried the other beacon in the model, and now that everything's fitting the way I'd like it to, that's really nice. I'm really happy with that. Now that everything's fitting the way I want it to, we can take it back apart, and then we can put in the other threaded inserts. Right there. We'll put in those two threaded inserts, that one and that one. And then I can make the little board that connects the LED and the motor. So let's get to doing it. Okay, let's put in these threaded inserts. Little piece of advice for you. If you're going to build a model like this, or even a model that uses threaded inserts to attach an electronic circuit to a model, be very careful with the threaded inserts that they are fully pressed in, because if they're any bit proud of the hole that you've made for them, they will touch more than one line on your Vero board and it'll cause a short circuit. So there's a couple of things that I've done to negate that. First thing is, when I'm doing the Vero board, I'll put it out on a strip that has nothing connected to it at all. So if it does cross to more than one strip, it's not going to short out. It's not connected to anything else. And then the second thing is to make sure that it's pressed in all the way. But just if you are going to build something like this yourself, just do keep that in mind. Be cautious of it, because it can and will cause a short circuit, which could damage your model. And I am speaking from experience with that one. So you can see I've gone past where I needed to go with that one. I'm going to flatten it down now with a flat surface, and that will make sure that it's definitely flush. Okay, they're both nicely in now. That's all 4 inserts put in properly. So the next step, I'm going to cut the Vero board and I'm going to solder on the connectors, and we're going to attach it to the coupling. These are called JST XH connectors. I'm going to need 3 for this model. So one for the LED, one for the motor, and one for the power coming into the model. And then a diode. That's a flyback diode. So we're going to solder on a flyback diode. And what that's going to do is, when a motor stops, the magnetic field in the motor collapses and it sends a spike, which can go back and damage the circuits of the model. So that flyback diode is going to allow the spike to dissipate through the motor. But one little trick that I do is I put a tiny little bit of glue, a little bit of CA glue, onto the connector, and then I put it onto the board, and that way it'll hold in place when you want to solder it. Only thing is, you can't really desolder it, because if you do desolder it, this is glued onto the board, right? So there's for and against. You can measure it up yourself and figure out if that's for you, but that is what I do. This is just a bit of soldering flux. It's always good practice to put a little bit of flux. It makes it easier to solder the circuit. Your solder will flow easier onto your circuit if it's got flux onto it. I remember the first time I tried to use this marker, I tried to use it like a normal marker and just, put it onto the circuit, and nothing worked. And then I showed it to my dad and he went, "Oh, well, what's wrong with it?" And he pressed it in like this. And then I saw the flux flowing. So that's how I learned that you have to kind of pump these markers, that they're not just like your everyday marker. Now, this is going to get a little bit noisy, so this is going to get sped up because I'm going to use my fume extractor. Okay, there we go. That's all soldered up. Turn off the extractor. We can cut everything down nice and short. But that's it. That's what's going to connect the beacon and the motor to the power source. Lovely. Okay, at this stage I can attach the little connector circuit to the coupler. And then we can put the beacon onto the coupler and put it together for one last time. In this episode at least. Okay, there it is. Now we can put the beacon on. Put this little fella on here. When I'm attaching this, obviously, permanently, I'm going to have to figure out which is the front and the back. But at the moment, we don't really need to worry about that because all that we're doing is checking for fit. So we're going to attach this little beacon, put a little bit of tape on it, and then check it all for fit. As I said, in the future, if I'm going to make another one, another lighthouse, another beacon, I must try and think of maybe a different way to attach the beacon, because the solution definitely works. It makes it so that we can have an interchangeable beacon. I love that. But as you can see, it is a small bit awkward. Now, the reason that I've put this on two connectors instead of one four-way connector, you might be thinking, why didn't you use one four-way connector? The reason is simple, because if something goes wrong with the beacon, I can plug each individual component out, and then if it lights or spins, I'll know which component is broken. So that's why I've gone with two connectors instead of one 4-wire connector. So let's put a little bit of tape on this and then put it into the model. Now that we've got our threaded inserts in and our little connector circuit in, we can put it back into the model. I had a small error earlier in the video. You'll have seen where these little ears were 90 degrees off. And what it meant was this pipe here wasn't lining up with the ladder. That's fine. That's exactly why we did a little test ring. And I'm glad I did it. But we can try it now and make sure that everything lines up properly. So put it into the model, screw it together. And now at this point, you can see that the pipe that the wires are in lines up with the ladder, so that should mask that nicely. It's a little off at the minute. That will come back in once we put the PTFE tape onto the threads. That will basically take up that 0.3 of a millimeter difference. But I believe that's gone really, really well for us, especially when you compare it to the reference photos of the real thing. I'm very happy with it. In the next episode, we're going to build the glazing cages. That could be a bit of a nightmare. That's normally been very difficult in past builds. We're going to try this ring, as I said before, to try and hold everything together, see if that works. Then we'll make the railings. So I'll make a set of red railings and a set of white railings, and we'll see which one suits our model better. I'll also fit the door and the windows. Take out this little bit of rubbish up here, this bit of over extrusion. Get the windows and doors in. And I'll also build the weaker beacon for this model. So yeah, I think that's worked out really nicely for us. If you've enjoyed the build, please do consider leaving a little like for me. It would really help my channel to grow. But for now, that'll do it for this video. We'll catch you in the next one.